Hi, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the Friday, June 5th, 2026 Kirkwood Meadows Public Utility District regular board meeting. Move on to agenda item 2, roll call.
Sure. Anita Rotunda,
Here.
Epstein,
Here.
Schroeder, here, Tucker. And Dornberg here.
I think I may have been muted. This is Tucker here participating remotely.
Thank you, Chris. Move on to agenda item number 3, announcements. Rick?
Yeah, I would like to welcome everybody to the regular scheduled meeting of Kirkwood Meadows Public Utility District. If you're attending online, please use the raise your hand function if you'd like to speak. If you're here in person, please go to the podium so our microphone can pick your voice up. And if you like, leave your name so we can have it in the minutes as well.
Thank you, Rick.
No?
As a reminder to the board, we'll be doing roll call votes today because we do have remote participants. All right, let's move on to agenda item number 4, corrections to the agenda of the consent calendar. Anyone have anything?
Yeah.
Nope. Chris, anything?
Nope.
We'll move on to agenda item number 5, comments from the audience. This is an opportunity for our members of the public to address the board on any short non-agenda items that are within our subject matter jurisdiction. We cannot take discussion or action on matters that aren't listed on the agenda per the Brown Act. And if you have comments on specific agenda items, I'd remind you to save them for those agenda items. Okay, I don't see any hands up online. I don't see anyone in the room. I will move on now from agenda item number 5. We'll move on to number 6, written comments from the public. I do not believe we had anything in the packet, and we did not receive anything late that wasn't in it either. All right, we'll move on to agenda number 7, adoption of the consent calendar. We have 3 items: the board minutes from May 1st, 2026, concurrent consent for claims, and receivables past due report.
Move adoption of the consent calendar.
Bob has moved. Is there a second?
Dornberg, I'll second that.
Okay, roll call vote, please.
Anita Rotunda.
Aye.
Epstein.
Aye.
Schroeder.
Aye.
Tucker.
Aye.
Dornberg, aye. It's unanimous.
Excellent, thank you. We'll move on to agenda number 8. There were no items brought forward for further discussion. Now move on to agenda number 9A. This is proposed changes to the electric rates and electric rate structure and possible adoption of ordinance 26-01, revising electric rates and rate structure. Rick and Brandy.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
So today we are just doing a review of where we are to date, including the conversion of the new EDUs for the electric rate study and the recommendation from the Technical Advisory Committee, who met last Monday, to adopt the 2026 rate study and ordinance 2601, which puts those new rates into effect. So this is our 6th presentation to the board. There have been some changes along the way that were incorporated into the final version that you'll see in your packet today. And we did have a public hearing that we held in May. So if the new rates are approved today, those would go into effect July 1st. This slide is just the highlights of the rate structure. So highlights include a usage rate reduction from 24 cents a kilowatt hour to 21 cents a kilowatt hour. The avoided cost, which is the payment for excess solar production to our customers that are net metering customers, has likewise been lowered to 11 cents a kilowatt hour. 2026 EDU definition is no longer usage based. So it's no longer based on the historical electric use at any meter. 32 employee housing units were reclassified from commercial to residential. Model B, which is the AMP only method, has been used for residential, which means that all residential meters with a standard size panel are set to 1 EDU in the 2026 definition. And to get to the 2026 definition, all of the old EDUs are scaled by dividing by 1.16, and the base rate is increased by 1.16. So it is not an increase across the board by 1.16. The minimum EDU was changed from 0.5 to 1, and this only applied to a handful of commercial customers that were less than the 1 EDU. There's no EDU change for commercial accounts greater than 1 EDU. And our recommendation is to increase or decrease any changes to people's base rates at a rate of 25% per year.
And just from that minimum EDU, I thought that's residential. There are more than a handful of residential customers that I imagine had.
There is that is true.
Okay.
All residential customers will be 1 EDU.
Right.
That is correct. Yes.
Just to clarify, there are customers impacted by that change.
Thank you. Yes. So this slide just shows the rate structure as proposed. This is reflected in the rate study document that's in your packet and also the ordinance. You'll see the 2 lines here, the 2021 EDU and the 2026 EDU. The 2026 EDU is 1.16 times. The financial part of this rate structure was based on fixed cost from the audited 24 and 25 financials. Those were adjusted for changes in debt service, and they are updated to reflect the proposed 26-27 budget. It does assume a 3% CPI annual adjustment where appropriate, and where appropriate means for the non-fixed components only. The CPI would only be applied to non-fixed components. It includes $230,000 in property tax allocation every year. And the usage rate reduction that I mentioned on the first slide, that's based on favorable hedges. The hedge is the partial purchase, the purchase of a portion of our power ahead of time, and we got a much more favorable rate than our last hedge. And we have agreed to only purchase RECs, renewable energy credits, at the RPS, Renewable Portfolio Standard requirement. So to the impact to our residential customers, the intent here, what we have is a standard across all residences, plus increases for higher than standard panels. So 1.16 2021 EDU is applied for each residential unit with a panel size less than or equal to 200 amps. Above 200 amps, of which we have 2 customers, a 0.5 EDU rider is added to that for every 100 amps, up to 400 amps. And at 400 amps, you require CT service or a commercial meter. So you would be a different class at that point. We have no residents that are existing or proposed to go over 400 amps. And this was because, I'll just remind everybody, there was no correlation between actual usage and panel size below 200 amps. It's really based on a number of factors that we were not able to quantify. The previous EDUs for residential customers, which is their base rate that they paid on a monthly basis, ranged from $60 a month all the way up to $827 a month for a single residence. So our standard here is to move to a standard base rate for residential customers. It's simple, it's understandable for customers. And when we are able to reduce rates because we're able to pay down debt, we'll be able to impact everybody. This commercial EDUs. The EDUs remained unchanged if their EDU value was higher than or equal to 1. If they were less than 1, that has been increased to 1. And what that means is that a small commercial customer would pay the same as a residential customer. They would not pay less, they would pay the same. New commercial customers, which we have not had in some time, but we hope that we might see some, will be assessed a base rate using this formula. So we're basing it on the characteristics of their service times the scaling factor. And the scaling factor is used to adjust new customers. If we had a new similar high-speed lift to Chair 6. We want that new base rate to be equivalent or same. And so what we are going to do internally as staff in the next 5 years is analyze the scaling factor for all of the existing commercial meters. To the next rate study, the GM will bring recommendations for any additional changes to the commercial class, adjustments within the class. But if we have new commercial customers between now and then, we will assess their base rate using this formula. So our rate study here assumes our budget for the next 5 years. By adopting this rate study, the board is adopting the maximum rates with the exception of the CPI for the next 5 years. But if costs come in lower than that, if our debt expense is paid down, if we see what we expect to see in interest reduction by the 5th year or in any given year, annually the board could decide to adopt a lower base rate. But it is, as we see here, capped at the value in the rate study. So we will have the opportunity through this next 5 years to adopt lower base rates than shown if our finances permit it. So today for the board, we have 2 decisions. First is the adoption of the 2026 electric rate study, which is the document itself, the methodology, the decisions that the board has made to this point. And then if that is approved, the second is approval of ordinance 2601, and that authorizes the new rates to go into effect July 1st. And with that, we'll have questions.
Great. Thank you, team, for presentation. We'll open it up for public comments and questions before we have maybe more discussion on it. So anyone in the room that wants to comment, please do that now. Don't see any hands up.
I do.
Oh, sorry.
Question.
Come on up to, please come to the podium.
I'm happy to come up and do it. Thanks so much, Brendy. The budget looks great. Do you have an estimate for about what that commercial scaling factor is? And the corollary question, is it close to lining up with what we're doing on the residential side? If you take a 200 amp panel and, whatever the formula is there approximate parity, commercial versus residential?
We've only looked at a couple of meters because that's the data that we had available to us. I believe we were about 11.
Yeah, between 8 and 11 in the
as-
small sample that we did so far. That was the number.
And to answer the second part of your question, we don't know yet. There are some differences in behaviors with the larger commercial meters rather than the smaller ones. We've at the TAC level discussed the possibility that we may end up with something similar to other utilities where we have like a small commercial subclass and a medium commercial subclass. But that's as much as we know right now.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, I would just add on to that a couple of things. One is that all of the Northern California public utilities got to get together annually to talk about rates. And so 3 weeks ago, Brandy and I were at the meeting, and we were able to talk to 15 other organizations, including the large ones like LAPWD, LA and SMUD, Roseville, the large ones, as well as Ukiah, across the board. But it did become clear to me that we'd probably end up with a commercial and an industrial rate because they are so different in terms of what they impose on the grid. So we have all of their data. So it's a chance to sort of dig through that and understand it better. So in the time frame of if we did have new commercial customers, that we would have a good understanding of how we could do things in a way that's consistent with other utilities.
Amazing.
But as long as you're standing, I also want to tell you how much I appreciate the time you put in and your willingness to at least teach me all the areas that I didn't really understand. So it really helped out a lot. So I'm going to thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you all. It's been great. And I think the purpose of this question was mostly to say, hey, I'm happy to try to help get ahead of the next rate study while we're not under such time pressure. And we can explore more options before it's sort of like feet to the fire. Here, we need something.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Trevor. Appreciate it. Okay. Anyone else here in the room? I don't see any hands online. All right. Board questions, conversation. We have 2 items that we need to discuss here. Right, Brandy? Thoughts, questions?
Now, what we did on the rate study itself is we tried to incorporate in the questions
Mhm.
from the last public hearing, and then be able to explain the fact that the EDU changed, but it didn't cause, the EDU change does not cause any financial difference.
It alone does not cause.
It alone does not cause any. So we tried to clarify those items.
Yeah.
And also, we also compared it to the letter that was sent to to all of our customers in April. And the final numbers are a tiny bit different, in part because of rounding errors, in part because we didn't include a cost of living adjustment in the out years. So they are slightly different than when the letters, but close to the same.
Okay. I think, any other questions or comments? I mean, we know we've
No, I think,
talked about this pretty extensively, so hopefully we've
yeah, we spent a lot of time on this, but I think it's a fantastic job. I'm very happy to see us get away from usage-based. It's nice to see the usage rate go down and to see the hedge come in and save us some money. So overall, really nice work.
agreed.
I'd add, if we look at our compatriots in this, most of them targeted 50% of their fixed costs in the base rate. So they were very impressed that we had 85%. No one else even imagined that number. But also our debt ratio to
Yeah,
revenue
I was gonna say
is dramatically
I was
different.
gonna say there are also other things that I wouldn't. Whatever. Anyway,
Yeah.
Chris, did you have something to add?
No, just laughed at the comment.
All right. I'm going to make a very annoying comment, and it's going to be consistent throughout a lot of the things I saw in the board packet. But in my endeavor to have us refer to FY26 and stuff like that, I think it would be nice if we were just consistent throughout all of the documents and like the ordinance and everything like that. And also, I will say this just because I'm annoying in this way, but if we can justify numbers and tables that have the same, there's a lot of stuff that's centered, justified, and I find it very hard when I'm reading the documents to be able to see the numbers. It would be really helpful in the ordinance, especially when we're putting an ordinance in that's going to last for 5 years. So again, the least important part of the things, but I just want to mention that as a general thing.
Okay. Well, the right justify, I thought we got them all. The other one is still a training program that I'm participating in, but I expect to accomplish that in the near future.
There's a good mixture of things. Anyway,
Okay.
but I will. Okay, at that point, before we go to a vote, any other questions, comments? Then we'll go to a vote. Okay. There are 2 items that we need to do here. One is the adoption of the 2026 electric rate study, and then the second is the adoption of ordinance 26-01 that puts those rates into effect. Is there a motion to approve both of those 2 items?
I move to adopt both items.
Thank you, Chris. Is there a second?
I'll second both items.
Roll call vote, please, Peter.
Sure. Rotunda,
Aye.
Epstein,
Aye.
Schroeder,
Aye.
Tucker,
Aye.
Nordberg, aye. It's unanimous.
All right. Well, thank you. Effective July 1st, the new rates will go into effect. I would say thank you to staff, of course, for working on this, and certainly our community members. We've had a lot of really good conversations on this rate study. Really appreciate everyone's time and effort put into this. We've made some pretty big changes here. I hope that these are 5 years from now, Trevor, when you're asking about things, we'll have fewer things to change hopefully next time. But I think this is a really great step and continues us in the right direction. So thank you to everyone who's participated in this. So well done. All right, we're gonna move on to agenda items 9B, and I think we can do 9C kind of coincident at this point, but we'll do 9B and then 9C and the approvals, I think, at the same time if possible.
Hello,
Anna,
everybody.
Aye.
Looking at the key assumptions for the fiscal year 27 budget, we've taken the board's direction and the finance committee's direction and made a few updates. In section 1, you'll notice that the labeling on the funds that are eligible to receive property taxes and ineligible to receive property taxes is updated to be more clear.
thank you.
First, in section 5,
Thank you, yeah.
in section 5 under rates, we've clarified the language here. You'll see a lot of repetitiveness. This is just to ensure that the verbiage aligns exactly with the current rate studies. Moving on to section 6. We have updated this section to note the $480,000 allocation to fire as requested. And in section 7, we've updated in salaries and wages. This section reflects the 10-month structure for eligible staff. Did anyone have any questions on the assumptions?
Yeah, looks good.
Moving on to page 1 of the budget. This is for G&A. The main differences that we'll see here from the previous years, an increase in operating expenses and a decrease in payroll taxes and employee benefits. This aligns with actual enrollments and then the classic versus PEPRA staff that we have that we're expecting for the 27 fiscal year. The increase in operating expenses is based off of our expectations for external accounting services, workers' comp insurance increases, general and liability insurance increases, and some slightly higher internal utility allocations. Any questions on G&A?
No question, but pretty dramatic change.
It's some shifting within classes here. Overall, the bottom line of the total net allocations between fiscal years,
It's pretty flat. Right?
pretty flat between 26 and 27. Moving on to fire here. One change in the other revenue section, you'll see that we're accounting for interest earned on reserves where we had not budgeted in alignment with actual interest earned in the previous year. Also in the salaries and wages category, we have increased expenses in this area to support any potential solutions the board may decide upon regarding the chief position opening in this fiscal year.
We'll discuss
We'll
that
just-
later. Okay, not in the budget.
Right, not in the budget section.
Okay.
Questions in this section?
No.
Nope.
For Parks and Recs, there's no major changes as usual. In the water fund, the major increase year over year here is just the updating with the wastewater and water rate study. Do we have any questions on the water fund?
Nope.
Okay,
All good.
and wastewater is the same. This has been aligned with the water wastewater rate study. We also see in the depreciation and amortization and the interest expense sections that we've updated the budget here to account for the capitalization of the wastewater treatment plant and the loan associated with it.
Are we on the Russ loan yet? Or,
That has finalized.
yeah, okay.
Yeah, it's closed.
It is closed. We are still receiving documentation and communication from them as to like what the official amortization schedule will look like.
Okay. But the party didn't get scheduled.
No.
Okay.
Moving on to employee housing. The major difference here is that we've worked in expenses associated with the Meadowstone condo purchase.
Okay.
Any questions?
Looks good.
Moving on to electric. I will note that we have applied the new rate study throughout that was just approved by the board. Is there any questions on this section?
So,
Okay.
sorry, for rec expenses, they are budgeted. I mean, just eyeballing like 26, I would have thought that it would have been for 27, it would be the same as the for out years for the decreased rec purchases.
This reflects the decrease in rec purchases for 28 and beyond. I believe our agreement states that we are required to purchase at this level through 27.
We're still under contract.
Understood. Okay, I misunderstood that. Sorry. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Good catch.
Moving on to cable, there's no notable changes here. In the snow removal fund, the biggest difference from the last time we reviewed this draft is an increase in operating expenses to align with the expected fuel costs.
And this will be discussed in the next.
Yeah.
time.
We'll discuss this further. Did anyone have any other questions on this section?
No, the fuel costs are the lion's share of the increase year to year, so. I think it's 4.6 and probably 4% of it is fuel cost.
Moving on to propane, I'll begin this section just by noting that we received a comment on an EDU revenue discrepancy for 27. There is a slight difference that has been present year over year. There is an expected $12,000 decrease in EDU revenues for budget for 27 that is not reflected here. And we are just requesting that the board, if they choose to approve the budget, do so with the caveat that this correction will be made.
The one-time correction?
One-time correction and only for fiscal year 27. Were there any other questions here?
Nope.
All right, and then for solid waste, no significant changes here besides an increased cost from our service provider. We're seeing that in the solid waste disposal section of expenses. And that is impacting our expected bottom line throughout the course of the 27 to 31 budget. Did we have any questions here?
Nope.
Okay, with no further questions, I think we're ready to move on to capital plan. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
All right, so similarly, we have had a few changes in capital, but not very many. So on the capital budget sheets themselves, you'll see three things that are changed. One is a formula error on propane 1 year totals has been corrected on this summary sheet. And the other two changes are in snow removal. We'll be talking about the snow removal budget in the next agenda item, but it was pointed out in finance that our capital budget for snow removal may not have captured equipment needs sufficiently, and staff agrees with that. So that has been updated here. There are no other changes from the last presentation. Would the board like me to go through this page by page, or I could just take questions on that?
Well, I think I did notice that the second table says FY 25-26.
Oh,
So I think that's supposed to say FY 27,
Oh,
right?
thank you. Yes, it is.
Other than that.
And then in the narrative itself, there was a minor formatting change. And that was just to update the description a little more on what each of the sections of the narrative actually tells us. The major projects, the individual fund projects, and then just to split it out into two different sections. So the first page that you see here, this is just the overview and the major projects, individual funds, individual projects, and their brief kind of one-line description of those are on the pages that follow the first page. And so I would be happy to take any other questions or discussion here.
I guess one thing to comment back to the budget and the capital budget, the operating budget, and capital budget, you made pretty significant changes to make the forecast for the forecasted budgeted numbers more accurate, right?
Yes, we found just in going through these that there were formula errors, and the templates that we were using needed to be updated. And so Amanda and I and Terry and Rick all worked on that. We found quite a few things. We expect that next year will be more improvement, but there are some changes here from the formula.
Yeah, so we should expect smaller variances next year.
That is
There'll
my
be actual variances,
strong
not
hope and
budget.
expectation.
budget errors, yeah. So that's all good news, and thanks for all the good hard work on that. And also the finance committee members, I think, we got a really good finance committee, so it's really helpful. I think to be able to get another set of eyes on all this before it goes to the board and the public. All right.
Any other questions? Okay, so I think we're ready to approve agenda items 9B and 9C. So that would be the operating budget, budget assumptions and capital budget narrative.
All right, motion to approve.
John, no motions, is there a second?
Yeah, I'll second it.
Okay, roll call.
Dornbrook.
Yep, question,
I was hoping to interject a comment before we vote.
please?
So over the last several years, I don't know how many, the base rate calculations, sometimes they're estimates and whatever, but we know exactly what they should be because we know how many EDUs are, we know we're going to charge. And so what the variation historically used to be is every year we recalculate them. And so that meant if people used more water, then the number of EDUs drops the next year because the average number goes up. And then we fall short on revenue. And then the next year we underperform and then the revenue over. So we got rid of all of that by having EDUs that stay fixed for the whole period. But that hasn't necessarily been completely reflected in the budget estimates. So what I'd like to propose working with Amanda is we make sure that we know, as exact as we can what they are. And if those are not materially different, but just to have the budget more accurate, I'd like to propose that if there are changes, that those be allowed to be changed in the budgets rather than having to explain it every single month.
Yeah, and what's the order of magnitude you'd expect?
Well, for water, it's about a $3,000
Yeah.
off. I believe it was like 12,000 for propane. Electricity is within pennies.
Yeah, so I think that's fine.
So
At least I think
if
it's
that's
fine.
okay, then we leave it to Amanda's discretion to adjust it or not, just so we don't have to explain it every.
Okay, John, would you like to restate your motion then so that we can capture?
Yes, motion to approve with the reconciliation of the EDUs.
Is there a second?
Yeah, I'll second that. Dornbrook.
Okay, roll call vote, please, Peter.
Mina Rotunda,
Aye.
Epstein,
Aye.
Schroeder,
Aye.
Tucker,
Aye.
Dornbrook, aye. It's unanimous.
All right, well, thank you everyone for the work on that.
I also want to add that this is really quality work and the improvements are very apparent. So appreciate it.
All right, we're gonna now move on to FY27 snow removal budget and HOA allocations.
Okay.
Take it away, Rainey.
All right, so snow removal contract pricing, there's some background here, but as you know, this is early for us to be getting out snow removal contract prices to the HOA, but it is something that Rick really wanted us to try to do this year. This has gone to finance, and we did receive some comments from finance that were incorporated into what you're seeing here today. And probably the largest one of those is to my, in my report to finance, I recommended a fuel adjustment clause in the contracts rather than adding in additional fuel cost. But it was brought up that that would be very difficult for the HOAs to manage a, secondary, charge at the end of the season. And so fuel costs have been increased here. We've doubled the fuel budget because our budget in the last 3 years, we've been averaging $3.50 a gallon of diesel, and we don't expect to be able to get that good of pricing going forward.
Do we, when we buy diesel, are we getting the off-road diesel? So we don't have to pay the
That's correct.
road tax.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's correct.
And is it a different color?
It's red.
Okay.
It's red.
Right.
Or pinkish.
Did not know that.
Okay, it's called
I
red
did not
dye.
know that.
That's how you can, that way they can test whether you're complying with the law or not.
So we can't drive we can't drive on the highway with our vehicles, but we don't. So this proposed snow removal total is $966,000. That represents a 4.6 increase over last year's revenues. And as John pointed out, approximately 4% of that is the increase in fuel. So we have given here a table that shows the breakdown in percentages of how much of that income is coming from each HOA. There are a few minor changes to this year over year, and those are due to feedback from our snow removal supervisor based on mostly snow storage availability or difficulty in doing the contracts. So there are some changes there, but they are not double-digit changes or anything like that. So like I said, finance reviewed this in their May meeting. Recommendations including increasing the monthly fuel charges and additional capital expenses have been included in the operating budget, in the capital budget, and are reflected in this document. So staff is requesting approval of this allocation and the total revenue amount. And then one final note is we are recommending the lease of a McLean, which is a small articulating tractor that you usually hear us call tracklesses. That's the next agenda item is that lease, but that is included in this price for your consideration.
And if the board decides to approve today's HOA contract cost allocations, just word of thought, the contracts will go out prior to the July 4th weekend, so the HOAs have it in time for their meetings to discuss for those that meet. Also, you'll see that we did not include snow stakes in the contract prices. We're going to send a separate invoice because historically we would send out the snow stake plastic costs to the HOAs. By the time October hit, we discovered, contractors bump into snow stakes, things happen during the summer, and then we have to go back and rebill and try to capture, a second billing for snow stakes. So we're going to hold off on billing for snow stakes until later on, but we don't expect the changes to be significant for each HOA, and we'll work with the HOAs on that as we always have. Further, the snow contracts this year, as last year, do not include driveways for the KMA. And we, again, have not returned and brought back, as you can see, the Whiskey Run HOA or the towers. So this reflects basically the contracts that we've offered the last couple years.
And Rick, will these contracts, we changed, and so we started a new format of like community feedback going through HOA contacts. Is that going to persist? And I remember there was some feedback. I remember in particular, Jack, you had mentioned some feedback on that, how that process last year. Has that been incorporated in that and changed and updated just to make sure people in the HOAs know how to get in touch with you? And, because part of it was like timeliness, right? Where it's like, contact them, but if that takes 24 to 48 hours, but it's a more urgent thing. I remember that was some feedback that we received from a couple of different people.
The staff does not recommend any changes with the HOA contacts. There'll be 2 designated contacts for each HOA to talk to us or the district.
But in terms of like the verbiage of how to reach us in terms of.
It'll remain the same.
Okay.
May I ask, please, Brandy, on the financials for snow, one of the things Finance Committee zeroed in on was the need for this to be a break-even operation. And it is by the current plan. If I remember correctly, it was not when we looked at it last time. The revenue we've talked about at 966,000. On the expense side, could you just explain, please, why expenses which were below budget, they're trending at least below budget for this year, down by about 120,000. And yet the plan for the coming fiscal year bounces them back up, not just to the current budget, but all the way up to 963. So we're going up by $220,000. That's, I don't know, maybe 20% roughly. Most of that is in salaries and wages, and in operating expense. Maybe the McLean lease is in operating. I'm not quite sure. Could you explain what's going on in snow expenses?
Sure thing. And that is that we need to budget for a heavy snow year. And what we had last year was not a heavy snow year, and we saw those savings. And on years where we have savings because we don't have to spend as many staff hours, or we don't have to use as much fuel, you will see us come in well below budget. But we do have to make sure, since snow removal must, like you mentioned, we want to make it break even. We must budget for a bigger snow year. And so that's why it's similar to budget, but not similar to last year's actuals. The McLean lease is included in operating expenses. And so that's where that comes in under the budget that you'll see. Does that?
Well, yes, but the budget for FY27 at 963, again, I'm looking at expenses. It not only brings us up to last year's budget, but way beyond. Last year we budgeted at 862. Were we not budgeting for a big snow year last year?
We've had some changes in terms of how much staff and the staff cost, but also the McLean is, the lease itself is for $42,000, but there is a cost above that for every hour we put on the machine over a certain amount. And so we've budgeted for an extra 100 hours there. So most of that delta is increase in fuel expected cost over last year's expected, over last year's budget, and the McLean. So last year we had, $30,000 in fuel costs. Now we're doing 60, and the McLean is at 50.
Got it. The important number, of course, is the 4.5%. We are only increasing the dues across all the 20 some odd HOAs by only 4.5%. And so even though our expense budget goes up quite a lot, that won't mean a very large increase for the individual HOAs. I know there's some exceptions when you get down to each one of them. Okay. Thank you for the answers.
Absolutely. It is 4.6%.
4.6, yeah.
That's right.
But it's not 4%, 4.6 per HOA, because HOAs change. So
There's some shifting going on, but like Brandy pointed out, for most of them, the changes are not big. And
those percentages are the 5-year averages, 3 years. I can't remember what we did on the allocation percentages. Remind me on the
3 years.
3-year average of usage. So that's where those numbers come from for the middle column there, or the second to the right. Brandy, maybe you could just go into Chris's point. You talked about it in the first part of the document here, but maybe just for context for everyone on how the revenue for snow removal has worked and how we've taken interfund loans and how that plays out. Because I think when people, the natural following question is, we were under budget, so what did we do with that money? And so maybe you can just talk about how the interfund loans have worked, the reserves that we're trying to make sure we have, and things like that, and how this will work going forward.
Absolutely. So snow removal is not eligible for property taxes because it is an enterprise fund. It's an optional service for people. And so it is our goal to run this at a break even, while a break even that has sufficient room to build reserves so that we can replace equipment as we need to. And we have not always, as the district, done that. In times where we have not had significant reserves, or we have had a large snow year and we've under budgeted, our other option for getting cash to this department is an interfund loan from electric, which is permissible, but it takes reserves from electric, puts them to snow removal, and then snow removal has to pay those back
With interest.
with interest. And so just this last year, we paid off the remainder of the interfund loans to a tune of almost $200,000 and got snow removal back to kind of square one. So we do have some reserves in snow removal right now. And we are budgeting with the assumption that in heavy snow years, we may dip into reserves somewhat. For capital purchases, we may use reserves for that. In lower snow years, we'll build reserves so that we can continue to self-support the snow removal fund.
And we will build those reserves up to, was it 25% of operating, that's per our board policy on all of our funds.
And keeping in mind, the status of our fleet equipment for snow removal and the challenges of getting parts for older machines. And it's why we want to lease the McLean. I think we're going to continue to see that challenge moving forward. And then some of our loaders are starting to show their age. So again, we're keeping that in mind as we present this to you as well.
Right. And I guess, and part of this would be, it should smooth some of the increases over time as we build reserves, because, what was it, 3 years ago, we had a pretty heavy shock, right? Because we had equipment purchases and all sorts of, and that was a massive increase that we had KMA leaving. So it was a really compounding impact that we had in that situation. But hopefully this will smooth some of that by having reserves, having some backup. For that amount.
So I have a question on the methodology. So do these percentages represent the fleet track averages, or are the adjustments in their dollar values changes, or where did that?
The snow removal supervisor input went into the percentages. So
Okay.
we took the fleet track percentages that we had going from last year to this year, and then we had the snow removal supervisor give us his input there, and those were changed.
Okay.
We come up to the podiums and so people can hear you, please, Jen.
I'd like to make a suggestion from an HOA standpoint. Should the board approve this contract proposal, I would suggest that KMPD put a letter out to all the HOA presidents immediately with at least the number that they can look forward to. A lot of us are on fiscal year basis. My budget's going to be done next week. I, of course, can see the number because I'm here and I'm on the finance committee. But a lot of HOAs are shooting in the dark when they do their budget. And by the time the July 4th meetings come around, they're fixed with the budget number. If they haven't got your input.
We completely agree, Jack, and that's
Start
the
to get
intent to
more.
have it here today to get approved and hopefully after the HOA. That's important.
Okay. Any other questions or comments on this? I do not see any hands up online. No one else in the room. Okay. I would say that the motion for this needs to be pending the approval of the leasing. So whatever the motion is here, since this budget assumes that we're going to have the least product that we haven't discussed.
Okay, motion to approve the snow removal budget and allocations for next year, pending approval of the equipment lease.
And the budget is $967,604.
I'm sorry.
The revenue target. I just took the sum of what's in that chart.
I think that is rounding, Bob. I did the same
966,155.
thing.
Yeah, and you get 100.6%, but I was ignoring that.
I think that's our issue there. The 966 is what is built into the operating budget for the year.
Okay, so it should come out to 966.
Correct.
Okay. 966, 155.
Yeah.
Okay.
There was a motion. There's a second.
I'll second the motion.
No discussion. Not.
Minner Rotonda,
Aye.
Epstein.
Aye.
Schroeder.
Aye.
Tucker.
Aye.
Thornbrook, aye.
I suppose I do need to ask if anyone else is disappointed that we didn't discuss this for 2 hours for the previous 5 board meetings.
2 hours.
We're gonna move on. Thank you. I will say, to Jack's point, I just want to say thank you to getting this done earlier. I think this is really helpful to the HOAs. It's helpful to get, I really appreciate the staff's push to get this done. So thank you for doing that. Okay, let's move on to agenda item 9E, FY27 snow removal equipment lease.
So continuing snow removal, staff is proposing that we lease a McLean MV6 for next season. So this lease is a 6-month lease. We have a set number of hours. Is written here, but I don't have. It's 200. And the reason for the lease is because of 2 things. One is that we have challenges on maintaining equipment. As Rick mentioned, a lot of the parts for a lot of our equipment comes from Canada, comes from third parties that we have no control over. And we have at least once a season, sometimes every storm, found ourselves in the position of we have 1 or 2 of our trackless machines down and we can't perform the type of service that we'd like to because we're waiting on equipment to be repaired. The second is just the cost of equipment. When you have a snow removal fleet that has understandable and expected turnover, you have new operators who are using equipment and things break. We have in our fleet a current McLean MV6 that we purchased in fiscal year 24 for a cost of $310,000. We just got that back from a major repair at the tune of $15,000 this last year. So these types of things are just going to happen with the nature of snow removal fleets. We've spent some time talking to the resort who has started leasing more and more of their equipment. This lease includes regular maintenance, regular services. The operator out of the north side of Tahoe would come down and do services and repair work for us if we need to here. We do have a budget to purchase another of these for $350,000 in fiscal year 29, I believe. But this is not that. This is just to supplement our existing fleet. We have currently a machine that is still out to Schaefer, who's one of our partners on maintenance, that is sitting in their shop, and it has been sitting in their shop for 4 months, and they don't have the part to repair it and get it back to us. So this is just an effort to, for a known cost for a season, get a new piece of equipment here that we'll be able to use, we'll have maintenance on, and see how that goes. I did mention the lease itself here is for $42,000. We budgeted an extra $14,000 on top of that in case we end up in a situation where we need an extra 100 hours for the season. Looking back at our fleet history, on a big snow year, we would exceed the lease number. And I don't want to get us into a situation where we're under budgeting by 75 hours because we have a big season and we still need to use this piece of equipment. So it's staff recommendation that we do this lease this year. We will be evaluating the lease versus purchase program going forward because in upcoming years, fairly soon, we're going to need to look at a new loader. And like I said, in fiscal year 29, we have budgeted a new trackless. But if leasing works out like we hope it might, we may move towards leasing the smaller equipment.
What's the capital budget number for this McLean, like 160?
350.
350. Okay, useful life is 10 to 15 or?
We have, our oldest trackless is about 14 years old. But like I say, we have some major maintenance issues on all of our trackless equipment. So it's hard to say.
But at a 10-year, it's about break even.
It
About
is.
10 years.
And it's somebody else's maintenance headache when a part breaks. That's not our fault.
Exactly, and this Sierra Equipment Supply, they do snow removal in their area too, but they also do a lot of leases, so they have a much better supply line than we do for
Yeah.
parts.
That was gonna be a question. So the idea of, you said, we have all these other people it's not just us not getting parts, but we have someone else not getting parts. So the idea is that they have stuff in stock or better access to vendors that would get parts faster for us.
Or
Or
extra machines.
steal parts from other machines, and then have our staff watch and assist repairing, replacing parts, which will gain knowledge for our staff with the other machine.
Is there I didn't notice it and was trying to find it. Is there any sort of like SLA on like, if something breaks, they will be here within some period / if they can't fix it because of something they can't do for 2 months, are we gonna get anything back? Like, is there anything in that context?
There is I don't think I have.
And that is the last page. So,
I'll print it out. They
top,
will be here.
okay, on my desk.
Okay, well, we can check on that, but the representation was that provided the roads are open, they would be here within the week to do maintenance work. I don't know that it says they would give us a replacement machine if they can't fix it within X amount of time, but I can confirm that before we do. Because that's what we would look for is if
Right.
you can't get this back up and running, what's our
Yeah, just at the very least, make sure you've had some conversation on that, if it's not in the lease itself, but I think having some sort of conversation on that would be helpful. And so the next major, so you're gonna evaluate how well this works, how responsive they are. Are there other vendors out there that you considered instead of this vendor?
There are other vendors that offer different types of equipment that we considered. Our snow removal supervisor feels that this sort of articulating tractor is the best for our purposes because of the tight spaces we get into driveways, the different types of snow removal that we do. And this is the only supplier in our area that offers this type.
But for some of the other equipment that we're talking about, there could be as different vendors. We could potentially have multiple vendor agreements if we decide to go the lease versus purchase route longer term.
So there are multiple options for the heavy loaders, and we have our last loader that we purchased, we actually leased first and did a lease to own with that. So we would be looking at different options for loaders.
Yeah. Right. Any other questions? All right, if not, the motion to. Do you need a motion for this or does?
Yeah, if you don't mind, yeah,
Okay.
please.
Yeah, motion to approve the lease on the snow removal apparatus.
Second that.
Any other discussion? Not, vote please.
Rotunda.
Aye.
Epstein.
Aye.
Schroeder.
Aye.
Duker.
Aye.
Dornbrook, aye.
All right. Thank you. All right, we'll move on to agenda item 9F, which is the public benefits charge.
Thank you.
So the public benefits charge is something that we've been talking about for.
Page 118.
18, gonna go up more pages.
My number wrong, like,
Yeah, the agenda has it off by a couple.
not that one, sorry. We'll find it.
Yeah, once you get started, Bill.
Thanks. So public benefits charge
You're
is
18.
something that we are required by the state of California to include in our electric rate. It's 2.85% of the usage charge. And it's collected from all of our savings. It's incorporated into the electric rate, so we talked about earlier. And the intent of this is to fund programs for low income, energy efficiency, new technology programs. We have been collecting this charge since fiscal year 22. We haven't spent very much of this money, even though we have established some programs. So this has been a topic of conversation at the EOP committee for some time, a couple of times between then and now. How can we get this money out and moving? And so what we have done here, and our committee member, Preston Roper, has done a ton of work here that's really incorporated here to help with these recommendations. But we have recommended to the EOP that we increase the allowances for energy efficiency items. And that we expand the low income portion of the program. So as you can see here, we've got current fund balance is $223,000. And we have one customer who's on the low income program right now. And that's it. That's the extent of our expenditures. So what we have proposed here is that we set aside 5% of our annual income to the program for low income participants. If that's not used at the end of each year, we'll put it back into the regular PBC funds to use it for energy efficiency. Our current guidelines establish an income maximum of 100% of the California median income and 225% of federal poverty level. Thank you. And we are recommending increasing that so that potentially we have more use of the program. And we would take these numbers and changes to the program and put that into the newsletter and try to get the word out that we have increased those. So can you scroll to the next page? Thank you. So for the low income program, we recommend instead of the 5% that we've set aside now, increasing that to 10% that we set aside. And again, unused funds roll into the regular PBC fund. Increasing the income maximum to 300% of federal poverty level. We used federal instead of state here only because those guidelines were out and the state had not published theirs as of the time of the writing of this staff report. And instead of offering $25 a month rebate, we would offer $50 a month. And we would attempt to get the word out and get better utilization of this program. The energy efficiency program, similarly, the incentives have been increased across the board for everything you can see in the table here. As an effort to get more people interested in the program. So along with these increases, staff feels that we should do newsletter articles. The EOP talked about working with communications on how we can get this word out to the community. And then if we could scroll up. Thank you. And the last thing that we discussed at EOP was if there is going to be more staff time spent on program administration, that cost come out of the PBC funds again as well. So we don't expect that to be significant, but if we see increased cost to try to get these programs moving the money out to the community, then we capture staff's cost as well. So we presented this to EOP. Peter, I don't know if you want to comment, but we did, we talked about this for several months, but in May we presented this final version.
Right. It's about the best thing we could come up with at this point in time. It's difficult matching the needs of Kirkwood with the needs of a typical community because the usage on your Energy Star appliance is way lower for most people than it would be in the normal community. So I think we can look at this as a reserve fund and hope that some of the restrictions that are on how we can apply this are loosened going forward. And because it'd be we're so limited into what we can do, and it's frustrating.
And I will just add, at the energy rate meeting that Bob and I attended, this is across the board. Everybody's like, we have all this money, we can't spend it. How do we get it out there? And so this is something that we hope will help, but we're not alone here in trying to take these limited use funds and get them into the hands of the people that can use them. So
I had a question on the heat pump incentive. Is that worded so, if you look at like central HVAC, you generally have one furnace in your house or one water heater. Is HVAC worded so someone could install multiple units in aggregate and to lead up to,
10 mini splits.
yeah, it seems like a 4-ton max. It says system, so that's kind of loose.
staff would interpret that as the system for the
Okay,
residents.
Per house.
I have a question about table 1. So the low income program, I mean, the numbers above it look like they're annual dollars. I have a feeling the low income program, that isn't the annual dollar.
It's $25 a month for one person.
Well, that could get you 10 months.
I'm sorry, we went through as of 4/30/26.
Yeah.
It didn't start
Oh.
until part of the way through 20.
Oh, so that was what was actually,
Actual use until then, yes, but Kirk.
okay, so that's the contract. And none of our, okay, and there were no rebates, 0.
So we really have not had any use of the funds really. And hopefully this will help. I think staff is prepared to do outreach to customers who might benefit from either program.
I mean, there are stuff that's easy. Sorry, because I was just saying there are things that are easy to do in here, right? Like, dishwashers. I mean, it's still surprising to me that we haven't had. I mean, you don't change them every year, of course, but like, there are things that are easier than others. So I think some of the communication side of this would be
I agree.
getting people to know about this. I do. Chris, we have a question in the room, but why don't you go ahead real quickly and then we'll do the question in the room, okay?
Yeah, thanks. So we no longer allow for new residential gas hookups, and the first all-electric houses have come online, very small numbers, less than 5, I believe. But for people who want to upgrade to heat pump, or people who have no choice because they have a new house, I've always thought that there's more that we could do to inform them, everything from case studies to recommended or lists of vendors. Most importantly, presumably, would be case studies and information about the viability of heat pumps in Kirkwood, given climate and elevation. This implies some sort of consultant study. I heard several comments about all the restrictions or a sense of limit on what one can spend PBC money for. To my knowledge, there's never been a utility in California that has faced any kind of penalty or even warning for misuse of PBC funds. And we, of course, are even less likely to run afoul of things being publicly or municipally owned. We're not under CEC. What's the concern? Like, what's the reason not to push a little harder on this idea of studies and help for homeowners that want to consider or need to consider heat pumps?
There's a question, can we spend money on consultants to come and do like efficiency?
I contend that yes, one could do a consulting project that would, or just a study, Kirkwood specific, to show the viability of heat pumps here. And it would include things like case studies from those who've done it already. And so it sounds like we're somehow reluctant to do that because we don't think PBC money can be used for that.
That's not my reluctance, Chris. I
Yeah.
mean,
Oh,
my reluctance as staff is that we don't have the capacity to extend ourselves into trying to manage studies like this. We would have to hire some consultant or a person to manage this. So
Yeah.
that's been, that's my hesitation on that. The PBC funds, if the study is going towards any of the allowable things, then it is my reading that it could be spent on
And we
that.
had talked about this in communications years ago
Yeah.
about having having an option being like, can an individual homeowner hire someone to come and do a home audit, energy audit for them? And that was an idea that we talked about, and that was in scope. It just, I advocated for it, but it didn't get pushed all the way through, right? So I think there are options, Chris, and I would say, we have done some, I mean, not related to PVC funds per se, but like we have our own use case here in the district, and we've talked about that, and we've talked about the efficiency. I don't think there's can it work here? I mean, I think that's pretty well accepted at this point. It's just getting people the understanding of it and the communication side of it, of use cases and homeowners who have had experience with it, or putting this all together. So if we wanted to spend money to hire someone to do that, I think that is we could do that. I don't think that's a application program. That's just us having to say we want to spend X $1,000 on hiring someone to do it.
Oh, okay.
Or communications could take this on as a project and, get interviews and some data together and put it together as well.
Okay.
With spending money, who knows?
Well, as you can tell, I think it's something that we could and should do. We can do it through EOP. We can do it through communications. What I'm talking about is paying some outside resource, whether it's a consultant or an intern or what have you, someone who would put together the study. And this is not a deep engineering study, of course, it's more of a marketing study to show that heat pumps are viable and here's how you do it. And the funding for that, I would claim, should come from these PBC funds.
The feasibility seemed to be an issue about 6 years ago, and we did the heat pump install at the district, right? At this point, it felt like heat pump feasibility wasn't.
I think
suspect.
that's what I'm saying is I don't think that's what Chris is maybe talking about here, hopefully, or what I'm trying to get us to is it's not about feasibility, it's more about, hey, did you know, like here's the playbook, right? Hey,
Yeah, there you go.
you built this, you can call these 5 vendors,
It's,
So may I suggest that,
Yeah.
one, that the board
Yeah.
hopefully approved this, so
Right.
it steps in the right direction. Thanks to Preston Roper, who's done a lot of work behind the scenes, but two, this is an ongoing agenda item for the EOP committee, and so if it go back to the committee to discuss, either continuing feasibility studies or expanding or whatever it might be, but I think EOP should have another crack at this before we come back to the board.
The problem is that the money can't be applied to new construction. It has to be applied to replacement.
right?
That's my
There are some
understanding.
limitations, you're correct.
We don't have to worry about new construction. They either freeze to death or they put in electric heat. So that problem is solved.
Yeah, I don't think that's really, it's more about how, anyway. Do you do a public comment here? Please come up here so we can.
Chris Trevor again. I am happy to contribute a write-up to the communications committee, being one of said all-electric houses, and be transparent about, details of what we chose to install and who the contractors were, who the contractors we didn't choose were, how it's working, how much electricity we spend. I don't need to be compensated for that. And I feel that it'd be disappointing to spend this money on consultants rather than on making changes in the community. My 2 questions are.
Should we accept now or wait till
Yeah.
later to accept your offer?
yeah, sure.
You can
Hereby accepted.
You accept.
whenever you want.
Clear the decks for the next newsletter.
My 2 questions are, must you be replacing a gas appliance to get this credit, or are you allowed to replace an electric appliance with another electric appliance?
Some of them are either, this,
Dishwashers, I don't think is like,
yeah,
Yeah, we
Yeah,
we have a
but-
propane one.
yeah, there are dishwashers, refrigerators,
We have a human one.
electric clothes dryer, any of those, were allowed to be electric to electric replacement. But
but it was usually usually these are like an efficiency gain. So if you already have an energy efficient appliance, you have to show that you're gotten an efficiency improvement.
There are program guidelines, Trevor, that I can send you over, but there were specific, ratings on a few of these that were, you had to get this much more efficient, or it did have to be retirement of a gas appliance. So I'll get those. Those will be on the communications out to public too.
Okay, perfect. So that was my second question was. are
It's not
these-
just a replacement of like, you can't just do like, oh, I'll just replace my dishwasher. Like, and it's already really like that's the intent of these programs is to gain efficiencies.
Perfect.
And
So
that's
the related
covering the
question
delta.
is, if I'm replacing a gas appliance with an electric one, presumably I should be less stringent ideally with my efficiency requirement on that, because that's a big win, presumably regardless, but maybe there's not the flexibility to do that.
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I mean, I would defer to staff on that, but I think that I theoretically agree with you.
But anyway, those are my two questions. Or does it have, what's required on the efficiency and what do we have control over, and just make sure that we kind of differentiate between electric.
Fuel switching and
Yeah.
efficiency
Thing
gain.
that actually
Yeah.
is great for KMPD, which is,
Yeah.
Get more people on electric and off of the.
What is the logic of giving incentives on electric to electric in the first place?
Efficiency gains.
Yeah, efficiency.
Do you mean revenue loss?
Well,
I mean, that's a whole nother concept of how utilities certainly. Yes, that's a part of it.
Don't
Yeah.
appliances like refrigerators become less efficient over time anyway?
Hmm.
I think there is an efficiency gain you get a 15-year-old refrigerator anyway.
Well,
I mean, the
it-
new
it-
continuous dry fridges are substantially more efficient. So if you have a
Right.
20-year-old fridge.
But I think even
you
an old fridge is gonna degrade over time as well. So whatever its original rating was is probably not as good anymore.
Yes, and efficiencies are just constantly happening. So no matter if you whatever you bought 10 years ago, even if it was Energy Star, will be more efficient now than was 10 years ago, even if it was the same efficiency.
and program guidelines are, these are given to us by the state of California. The state of California is interested in efficiency, even if we sell less electricity because of it.
A well-studied problem.
Yes.
Right. Thank you, Trevor, and thank you for volunteering to help inform our community about your experiences. I appreciate that very much. Any other questions on this? Okay, is there a motion to adopt the new program?
We move to adopt the new program.
For a second,
Yeah, I'll second that.
any just further discussion? Okay, not roll call vote.
Mayor Redonda,
Aye.
Epstein,
Aye.
Schroeder,
Aye.
Tucker,
I,
Norberg, aye.
And these go effect immediately, or?
We will do our best to get it in place by July 1st.
Great. All right, we'll move on to agenda item number 10, administration report.
All right, we'll begin with the overview and budget variances. The snapshot for the month of March. Our bottom line, and we see this on the income statement, the combined income statement, we reflect a $196,000 change to net position. The budget assumed $100,000 roughly. This results in a positive variance of about $94,000 in March and helps us out with a $93,000 year-to-date over budget. This points to overall combined favorable performance as compared to budget in the month of March. And then on the balance sheet section here, it's worth noting that there are shifts from the prior period and balances between operating cash, which we see under current assets, and the capital reserve accounts. This is due to the US quarterly statement that was paid in this period and a transfer of funds to capital reserves to optimize earned interest. Were there any questions on the balance sheet section of this or the combined income statement section?
It seems like all the anomalies we had creating variances are all basically behind us now. Billing issues and rate study implementation and things like that.
Yeah.
And the snow removal accrual rate.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah, we notated that in the unearned revenues section that there is still $127,000, roughly $127,000 sitting in unearned revenues in the March period that will continue to be recognized over the remaining snow removal contract period. But we are largely balancing out here.
Yep.
And March performed well, which is good for us because we have seen lower income for residential utilization across all months of this. Moving on to the combined balance sheet. Did anyone have any questions here? We mostly went over these things in the overview. No questions? We can move on to the combined income statement. The bottom line here is where we see that favorable year-to-date variance of $93,000 and the improvement in the month of March. Any questions here? Okay, and then moving on to the individual income statements. Were there any questions on any of these? Perfect. And then is Matt on the call with us today?
He isn't. Let me,
Oh, I see Matt here. He was gonna go over the cash flow, I believe.
let me promote him to a panel or a love.
Matt, are you here with us?
Yep.
Can you unmute yourself?
Yeah, thank you. I clicked the yes button and then it had me muted still. I apologize.
Hey, did you have anything you wanted to add on the cash flow statement this meeting, Matt?
No, the screen wasn't showing it, but we've had a few months now where we've included this cash flow statement, and just I'll answer any questions or anything that you want me to go over. But I think we're kind of getting familiar with the format and all the things that Brandy you were just talking about. You can kind of see how those impacted the cash flow. Sorry, Amanda.
And you can see here the transfer to reserves.
yeah, and the history on this is a much more standard format and it foots to the other elements of the financial statement better. And then all the changes in the rate studies over the past 5 or 6 years have stabilized cash quite a bit to cover our fixed costs and leave us less exposed to down years.
Yeah.
So we've got a much better report that we don't have to be as concerned about anymore. Right. Yeah, we used to, we're going down to below 2 million, we're in trouble, you know. Now we don't fall to those low balances anymore.
All right, if there's no further questions here, we can move on to KVFD 501c3 finances. Were there any questions on the consolidated balance sheet? On the income statement for this fund, I did want to notate that we received a $3,000 donation from a community member in this period and say thank you to the donor.
Thank you.
Any further questions on finances?
All good. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, Amanda.
Thank you.
Move on to agenda item number 11, operations report.
So for performance reporting for the month of April, so what we're looking at today. We see year to date electric unidentified losses at 7%, with the month of April coming in at 3%. Propane, we saw a shift to the positive loss, 8% unidentified losses in April, with 5% year to date. Our goal for that unmetered is 2%. So 5% is still a little higher than expected. We don't anticipate coming in very high for the year. We have not had any leaks or anything else that would contribute to that. So we expect to see May and June come in. For water for the month of April, we're at 7% loss, which brings us to 10% year to date, which our goal is 15%. We are in line on that one. And then probably the largest one here and the largest focus for staff is wastewater. We see unidentified unmetered usage, which is extra water, I getting into the system, made up 62%. We had 62% losses for the month of April. This is not out of line for the month of April, which is a snow melt season when there's a lot of groundwater. It's not out of line for our historical performance. This is something we are actively working on in the field to improve. Year to date, we're looking at 38%. And just to give the board and a report back on some of our field activities from the operations department, we have had a consultant come out to video and jet some of the sewer lines. We found a potential issue in the area of the VIP Lot Plaza Lodge Mountain Club area. And this last week, we did some smoke testing in that area to try to identify where this unmetered water is coming from. We did identify a potential connection that should not be there. It's something that we're going to work closely with the property manager and the HOAs to confirm and hopefully eliminate before the next time there's a lot of groundwater coming into the system. But just so that the board is aware, the sewer system should be completely separate from the storm drain system. So in every instance, there are storm drains with other water from not the tap coming into the sewer system. That's a problem for us because we end up having to treat that water at the wastewater treatment plant. And the PUD does not own or operate any storm drain system. So in all of the roads, those are not our systems. So this is a really big focus for staff right now and will continue throughout the summer. I'm very hopeful that we're able to get this wastewater number down.
You found a storm sewer connected into their wastewater system?
Not a storm sewer. There are sumps underneath elevators that appears to be going, groundwater sump, and
They pump into I got it.
And so we confirmed definitively that there's a floor drain in the room where this exits that goes into the system. So it's things like this, if we can find those things, because the rest of our video collection system work, there are problems out there. There are, cracks in manholes, there are lids that have small holes in them, there are things like that. But in areas, if we can find actual major problems, then we're hoping to see demonstrable results.
Would that water be clean enough to go back into the ground? Out of the elevator shaft?
Unknown.
Yeah.
Unknown. So it would be there are places where shops have floor drains that go through a separator before they go into the storm drain system, but in whatever instance, they don't go into the sewer system because the water, isn't metered, it's coming from. So this is one that we're actively working on bringing back in.
Is your estimation then that all those cracks and whatever it is, death by 1,000 paper cuts type of thing, where that is the return is, valuable, but it's harder to get that knocked out over time, while this one would be a sizable chunk potentially of Aye and aye.
Potentially, we would be able to see percentages drop here, whereas we are going to spend internal staff time doing repairs to manholes. Each one of those, you probably won't see year to year on the performance report. But if this could be a sizable difference. More to come.
Any other questions? All right, let's move on to agenda item number 12, General Manager's Report.
Couple things, you'll notice a major project list here, talk about that first. Really just updating this to reflect, the current activities of the district, really no changes from the last several iterations. Of course, we will update the court's approved the budget, we'll add that to this template as well for staff and for board review. As well, make sure we get the budget online, in the district's website as well. But other than that, I don't have any other additions or subtractions unless the board has any questions.
I don't, not additional chapters so much as I'll just note that of big board conversations and for the community who have been here through this, we've done 4 rate studies, water, wastewater, propane, and electric in the last 12 to 18 months or so. And so those are our 5-year rates. So if you can see on the calendar here now that that's going to get us out to about 2029 is when these sorts of things will start picking up again, where we'll be doing a master plan and then going into a rate study for all of these things, except for wastewater, right? Because that's we're talking about some of these things that Randy just talked about. So we didn't do that master plan last time. So that's why it's still on here. And then there's the connection fee. I think that we talked about that still having to be done.
It's still ongoing, yeah.
So that will be kind of the last piece of the puzzle. And then calendar 27, 28 should be relatively quiet for these sorts of things. And we pick back up in 2029 for master planning and things like that. If anyone's been here for rate studies, it'll be a while until you hear from them again, most likely.
Okay, and moving on then, just pleased to announce that the KVFD will be having a pancake breakfast on Sunday, July 5th, between 9 and 12 p.m., hosted by the Volunteer Fire Department, and a lot of volunteers that are stepping up and helping out, which we really appreciate. So we were working with Communications Committee to put the word out. I know that we've been in contact with the ski resort. I think it's Carla, actually reached out today to include it with some of the media information that the resort puts out, as well as the KCA and other HOAs are going to be sharing the information as well. So, yeah, we look forward to seeing everybody. It's a little bit different than years past, but I think this will be a really fun community event and allow the community to come out and check out our station, our equipment, but more importantly, get together and support the fire department.
Can you come to the podium, please?
And see, there's just quick comment, forward that to the PIO for Alpine County and have him disseminate that.
Great idea, Clay. Thanks. Yeah, we'll do it.
Okay.
That concludes manager's report unless there's any questions from the board.
Okay, I don't see any. Let's move on. We'll go on to standing committee reports. 13A, finance.
We've kind of been through operating budget and the capital budget and the lease, and I think we covered everything.
B, EOP.
I really don't have anything to add at this point. Just keep your fingers crossed and hope we can put that money to good use someday.
Okay, thank you. Chris, communications.
Yeah, a topic will be announcing the electric rates and an accompanying FAQ update for electric that will cover those rates. We'll have a first draft of that in comms later this month. Another issue just came up today, and that will be the profiling, I think you called it a playbook. It's with the idea of a playbook, starting with a profile that Trevor offered. I'm sure in the next few months we'll want to jump on that opportunity and profile heat pump, all electric housing.
Okay, thanks. Personnel did not meet. I will just note that we are coming up to the end of the fiscal year, which means that we are going to be doing our annual general manager performance review. So I've started that process with the general manager. So for the board members themselves, you'll be looking forward for some communications on that. And the personnel committee will be meeting in June to review some of the items there, and then looking forward to our OKRs and goals and objectives for FY27. So anticipate that at the July board meeting, we'll have a closed session to do the review and talk about OKRs and things like that going forward. So just as a heads up that that's what personnel will be doing next month, and then they'll impact the board at the July meeting. All right, IT and cybersecurity. Bob?
We didn't meet.
Okay, LAFCO did not meet. Temporary advisory committees. I'll take this opportunity to thank Directors Epstein and Tucker for their leadership on the electric rate study committee, working with staff and certainly our community members. I've said it before, but I think it's worth saying again. A lot of people have helped shape that rate study process that we went through. I think we've come to a really successful outcome. And so with that, we will close the TAC out on that. So thank you to our two directors who led the efforts on that. All right. Agenda item 14B, KVFD next steps. So this is Bob and I. As just a quick reminder and recap, when the 218 process we went through closed out and did not pass, we formed this temporary advisory committee to then explore next steps. The focus that Bob and I have been on is what do we do as of September 4th at 4:30 p.m. when our fire chief is resigning. And so making sure that we have an operations in place led by trained, certified staff to help keep our volunteer department going. The way that we've approached that first and foremost, but there's a secondary path as well that we'll talk about. But the first path that we went down was reaching out to our counterparts at Alpine County. So Supervisor Woodrow, who's here today, was on the calls with also the CEO and the incoming CEO, Sam Charles. So we worked with them, saw their staff at Alpine County to have conversations that then looped the current, the sheriff and then the fire chief in Alpine County to explore what would it look like to be able to partner again, in theory, with them through the 218 process, but now a reduced version of that, because obviously we have significantly fewer dollars available, so we can't fund what we had in the 218. We spoke with them last week, and they've indicated that their intentions are that the scope and size that we went through the 218 is really the minimum product that they were willing to contract with us with at this point. And they asked that we pursue other avenues that are not to work directly with them in a contracted format to go forward as a fire chief or other format to support Kirkwood in that way. And this was already happening in parallel in anticipation that this could have been an outcome. Bob and I worked with Randy and Rick to put together a job description to post, because basically where we are at this moment is that our viability will be to hire a fire chief ourselves, have someone with the certifications available, whether it's part-time, full-time, or something like that in between. That's still to be determined, but that is our most viable option. I will say that the county has reminded me, and I had a conversation with the new CEO this week, saying that the conversation of what I just referred to was not them trying to not be a partner, but they want to continue to see success here in Kirkwood and want to keep conversations going. So I appreciate that, but for the time being, we are here on our own to build something. That's kind of where it is left. Oh, Bob, do you have anything to add? Or I'll ask Supervisor Woodrow if she has anything to add as well.
See if Terry wants to add, sure.
Yeah, that was an interesting conversation that we did have Thursday, I guess it was. And we are willing to move ahead to help you in any way we can, but we encourage you to put out the job description and recruit for that. And we can help you. We discussed the PERS safety issue, because I know you had gone down that path and it kind of stalled. But Sarah was willing, to work with you on that. And I don't know if you've gotten in touch with her since then.
We have not gotten in touch with Sarah, but we have gotten in touch with CalPERS, who's been very responsive, and we've already sent them the job descriptions, and our hope is to try to expedite this process as soon as possible
Okay.
to create the safety classification for us.
And we want to continue our partnership with you and help you with problem solving. We want to see where this goes first.
Yes, we appreciate that. Thank you,
Okay,
Terry.
Thank you.
Terry.
Oh, and then just to remind you, Clint is our State Fire Safe Council, Clint Celio, he's here today. Our State Fire Safe Council person for Alpine County. And he's been working with the Firewise community. He got that going over here in Kirkwood. And he's been working on some other projects. I don't know if Clint wanted to talk about that at all.
That'd be great.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Clint Celio, Alpine County Wildfire Projects Coordinator. I will make one correction. I don't want it to be on the public record. I did not start the Firewise community over here. These folks are rocking and rolling, and I am pleased to be able to support them tremendously with all kinds of efforts, outreach, chipping program, whole 9 yards. So, yeah, actively working on supporting Kirkwood in a number of different areas. One of the things that we've just put together is I'll leave you this draft copy of the emergency evacuation trifold document. Working on getting this printed so that at the July 4th HOA meetings, there will be numbers of copies of these that can be handed out and used in the valley to kind of inform both evacuation routes as well as resources as to where to go, get more information and that sort of thing. This is coming from the evacuation assessment that we conducted last year. We put together a little evacuation plan for all the communities in Alpine County, Kirkwood being one of them. And so there's that assessment completed as well. That's part of the Alpine County safety element now, formally adopted just about a month ago. And also part of our fire risk reduction community list application, which we just got word will be approved. So all those things in concert with Firewise community should help homeowners get some reduction in insurance rates and that kind of thing. Finally, I have a draft version here of the Kirkwood CWPP. Just completed this. Community Wildfire Protection.
Oh, thank you. Okay.
In the past, Kirkwood has been lumped into Alpine County and Amador County CWPPs, but because we were divided by the county lines, there's not really been a Kirkwood-centric CWPP. Through this grant from the California Fire Safe Council, we drafted a Kirkwood-specific CWPP that encompasses both the entirety of the Kirkwood area in both counties. So this has a list of projects and maps of hazards and all that kind of good thing. So these are a number of projects that we're working on, continue to work on, and we'll engage with Rick, staff, and the board on finalizing these things in the coming months. So there'll be lots of opportunity for additional discussion.
Is there any inclusion with El Dorado County?
Well, it covers the entire area. We'll definitely send it to El Dorado County as well for their review. Because I know there are just a couple of cabins at the north end here that are in El Dorado County, right?
Yeah, and the Kirkwood Inn is part of our territory.
Yeah. So, yeah, all of that is included in here.
And what about Lake Kirkwood is?
That wasn't necessarily included, but we certainly can. This is draft. So, this is an opportunity for you all I'll circulate this to Rick, get his thoughts and comments on it first, and then we can circulate it and have a broader public meeting. And if there's things we need to include in there, absolutely. We can.
Because the Caldor fire was tree jumping over the spur.
For sure, absolutely. And, really what we're trying to do with this is give an opportunity to erase jurisdictional lines here in Kirkwood, because reality is reality.
Right.
When whatever situation hits, we're all going to be up here trying to figure this out, and we'll figure out the boundaries later. So absolutely, if those are missing items, we can definitely include those.
How do you expect the evacuation plan brochure to be circulated? I assume that's for all the residents.
Absolutely. It's for residents and visitors. I've left that to Sandy and Beth and the Firewise communities to coordinate with the KMPUD and the HOAs. And so there'll be copies that you can all take to your individual residences. There'll be copies that we can leave in public places so that visitors and whatnot can grab them as well. So yeah, that's kind of the expected plan, but certainly open to better suggestions. We'll also put this online so that it can be downloaded as well, in case that's a helpful solution.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's great.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Fire chief is a hire or a consultant?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
And you're avoiding like a retirement issue with both of the.
No, we're
To be clear, it would be a consultant until we revise the contract with CalPERS to include the safety component.
Okay.
Then we could actually hire.
If we wanted, I mean,
If the board decided, yeah.
right.
Okay.
I mean, I think we have no, like the whole point of that CalPERS, again, backing up a little bit of how this all works, right? We have no vehicle to hire someone today. Like we cannot literally hire anyone today
Right. That's
because
my
of
question.
the CalPERS structure. So it has to be a consultant. But we are going to have the conversations to have the structure in case we wanted to actually create a full-time hired position or, some that needs to be federated in that way. But it could be a consultant into the future.
Okay.
That's something that we can explore, but we have no option to hire full-time. I'll also say, Bob gave, we had a conversation about how do we make this an attractive position by offering potentially having housing included in this, which that's something that as a district, we would have to think about, what does that mean? Like we have facilities today that could have impact on snow removal. We could go buy something else. There are lots of trade-offs here, but I think in order to make this a valuable job posting that attracts people to come service us, that was something that we encouraged staff to put into the job description as well. But we'll have to
So
figure.
you're starting with a job description.
And it's posted on our
Consultant,
website.
it
already.
But you're looking at the retirement benefits to possibly be able to move to hire if you
That's
chose
correct.
to. And then you're looking at compensation and housing.
Correct. And so the compensation where, I think it was Amanda that you mentioned that earlier, that bumped up from $3,000, whatever it was, to like $125,000. That was budgeting in assuming that we were going to pay someone.
And then what about a search? Are you gonna be considered a search firm?
We didn't talk about last time. I mean, we've done job postings. We could.
We're posting local newspapers, as well as district website, but we could certainly expand that. Of course, it would be an associated cost, but I'm hoping to find someone who's familiar with Kirkwood who I'm interested in doing it.
Okay.
I think our perspective is we're in deep trouble unless we can find a professional that wants to be here and wants to be here, for a while, not just passing through. And so we have to put together an attractive offer. And I think that will be a mixture of somebody that wants to ski, right? And so, somebody who's going to be attracted to being in Kirkwood. So that's why I think we need to be prepared to possibly make that housing be included. I mean, I think, there's the cost factor, but having somebody who lives here, who's the fire chief that wants to be here, I think is kind of the minimum to make this all work.
Okay, thanks.
At least if we're going to hire it, I guess.
What?
So, I mean, we certainly have explored the Alpine County fire chief that would not live here necessarily full-time as an option as well. But if we're hiring it, if we're building ourselves.
Right, we've explored that option.
That option is
It's not an option. And after September, we don't have an ability to run a fire department.
We do not have people with the certifications that we would keep wanting to run a department.
What are the
Can you come up
certifications?
here, please? Thank you.
What certifications are you looking for, or do you know?
I can tell you, basically it's firefighter 1, but I'm also looking, it's posted as fire chief, fire instructor. So it'd be nice to have someone come in with a 1A, 1B, but it's up to the board on what they decide, or actually I would make a recommendation to the board on whoever it is. But again, at least firefighter 1 EMT, the bare minimums, to continue to leave, but also There's everything else you can imagine with the fire chief, administrative tasks, duties, and working with the counties for inspections and all the other things that are required. So.
Thank you.
Do you know someone?
I don't know.
So I would say, it's June 5th. September 5th is not far away. So we are moving as fast as we can. I think the search firm is an option that we should certainly consider, especially if the first week we don't get much here, Rick. But we'll meet again between now and the July board meeting, see where we are on staffing. I committed to telling the new CEO of Alpine County how our search is going to keep him informed, and Supervisor Woodrow, of course, as well. Just to let them know where we are. As I said, as of September 5th, as it stands right now, the board will have to decide how or if we operate effective September 5th.
And the request RFP is on our website.
Okay. All right. Thanks, everyone. We'll move on now to agenda item 15, general board discussion. I just have one item here in case anyone else has anything, but I just wanted to follow up on John. Your question at the last board meeting was, just so everyone knows here, I have a whole list of HOAs that I've reached out to. Sorry, I've reached out to every HOA.
I'm sorry, Ms. Surza has her hand.
Oh, I didn't see that. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
We'll stop. We'll go back to agenda item 14B then. Michelle, if your hand's up, I think, can you allow her to talk?
I will.
And go ahead. Sorry, I missed that. My apologies.
Oh, no problem. So I just had a quick question about, the possibility of using transient occupancy tax to go toward funding fire. I'm wondering, do we have an accounting of where that money has been going? And is it a possibility to even to discuss an increased portion going to fund fire and emergency medical services?
Yeah, absolutely, Michelle. Thanks for bringing that up. So, Rick, you'll help me out on this one, but if Ballpark is on this, I think Terry, Alpine County is not required to give us TOT, but they've volunteered to give us TOT. So the orders of magnitudes of tens of thousands, if I remember correctly, it's like $50,000. So like tens of thousands of dollars. And that the way that comes through to us is in our property tax. When we talk about property taxes, it's bundled into that as our approximately $1 million of property taxes that we get a year. So it is a part of all of that already in that sense. But so it, in some ways, some of it already does go towards fire because some percentage of taxes of, how we allocate that out. So some of it is that.
Well, we've allocated 480,000 of property tax to fire. Right?
Correct. So, 50,000, some percent, whatever you want the percentage is. So yes, part of the money is funding fire already.
Doug,
but it's a small percentage, right?
It's it's $50,000 is the total out of the $1 million that we get a year. So out of 25, let's say 20, unproportionally $25,000 is allocated to fire, just because percentages. But like that's how it's used, and it's voluntary. That Alpine County gives us those dollars. We don't have any claim to them, is my understanding.
And they give us a line item for TOT, or is that an estimate?
It's itemized.
It's itemized.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right, now we'll go back to 15. I did a bad job of looking on Zoom. I apologize for that. For 15, I just want to say I've emailed every HOA president now a second time. So I emailed everyone back in March or April, and then I emailed them again just to remind them that the KMPD is willing and excited to present and be available at HOA meetings for those who continue to have the annual concept. And in the follow-up, I did remind everyone that this CSB, this boardroom is available. And so we had to freshen up our policy on that. And so it took a couple of days working with Brandy and Rick just to freshen up the policy to make sure that we had updated it to current standards. And so that's available. So I will say this for anyone listening, of course, that if you're an HOA that wants to meet in here, that is available and open to you. And again, reaching out to every HOA in Kirkwood, I've heard from East Meadows, Lost Cabin, and KMA. Those are all meeting on the 4th of July. So we'll be presenting there. So that will be Rick, Brandy, and I we'll present there. And then Snowcrest, The Lodge, Meadowstone Lodge, Palisades, Sun Meadows 2, and Sun Meadows 3, 4. I've heard from all of them and have dialogues going with them. Some of those meet in August, some of those meet in February of next year. And so the annual meeting concept is certainly not universal anymore. I think certainly post-COVID, potentially that changed quite a bit. And so I think it's, I'll continue to use this time of year to remind people. It's just, I think, probably a good time of year to do that, knowing that these meetings happen. I'll say it's a standing offer for any HOA listening that, you have any meeting that you need us there, that, KCA, of course, included. They invited us a couple months ago to talk about 218 process. So including KCA and all of this, we're happy to help spread the word about what's going on here at the district, because I know not everyone attends or listens to these meetings, but we're happy to get out in front of that. So just want to follow up that has been done and that we've got some pretty good response. And so looking forward to speaking to each HOA when that happens.
Are they going to be meeting in this room?
The offer's been made. I don't think anyone has taken us up on the offer, Brandy. Is that right?
Yeah.
Not yet. I think there were some possibilities that some HOAs might.
I don't know if it's big enough for a KMA. I don't think you did get
We've got lots of chairs.
Yeah.
We did East Meadows.
Realistically, I just,
for 10 years.
yeah.
It's pretty big. Second biggest
East
HOA.
Meadows, you're saying.
East Meadows.
East Meadows.
The message is, like the front door, we are open, we're available. We want to be part of the community and the HOAs. So.
Yep.
No, I
I'm
don't
gonna be if you don't get any takers.
Well, maybe if not this year, then maybe next year, right?
Yeah.
So people know it's a policy change from at least when I joined this board. So it's new that we're doing this, and so it'll be new to some other people as well. But I, just again, for everyone out there in the HOAs and their boards, like, we're happy to come participate, and we are trying to be as open and obviously these meetings, but also going to you as well and meeting you where you are at your meetings and things like that. So
I think that realistically, you could get more people in downstairs in the garage than you could up here in this room. Although
we do have apparatus downstairs.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I'm just trying to be. I know, because the
You're right.
AMA meeting on the 4th of July is usually, it's a lot of people.
yeah, it's right close. This might not be the right venue for every HOA,
Right.
but the offer has been made available, and we have lots of folding.
No, I think it's a good offer because it's a community services building. That was the concept when we built it.
Okay.
The other one is Brandy, you said there was gonna be experiment with wastewater treatment plant noise abatement on the 22nd.
Yes, the week of June 22nd, so before the next board meeting.
Okay.
And as a reminder, what this is referring to is the fans that we are installed there. There were some customer complaints, especially on the east side of the noises. So there was a baffles, I believe, that was the option that you considered, something like that, to then be able to abate some of this noise. And that's what you're talking about on June 22nd.
I would recommend that you make a recording of what it sounds like now, so we could compare it to what and analyze whether we're successful with the remediation. I know last week I was walking in the East Meadows, and you can definitely hear it over there by the playground. And on East Meadows Drive, that first section where the duplexes are, that's where it's the loudest, because it's the meadow is narrow. It's like the waist of the meadow. It's tapered in, so and there aren't enough trees to really absorb all the sound. But I could see it's a valid complaint.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Randy, Rick, thank you for looking into that.
So I had one other general comment. I believe we still have funds in the playground account. And it seems like there's space. So I'm wondering if we could consider looking at some additional play structure that could fit in there.
Our monkey bars didn't make it through the winter.
Uh-huh.
So you'll see a big opening there. So
Yeah, I did notice it.
we've discussed either resurrecting or replacing. So staff will take that into account.
Okay.
Good. We've added 4 users over the last 5 years, so 4 new customers.
I'll have to examine your EDU.
That's right. All right, anything else? All right, if not, we'll adjourn today's meeting and remind everyone that our next scheduled meeting is on Friday, July 3rd, 2026 at 2 p.m. here in the CSB, in the boardroom. Thanks, everyone, for your
Doug,
participation.
do we meet August?
We meet in August?
There's no month off in August, is there?
Not planned at this time.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.